Hey everyone, Nehrim, one of my favorite RPG games, actually one of the few long story-driven games I played through twice, is supposed to be released on Steam in June 2020, so hopefully in a month or so it will be available on Steam officially. So I thought this would be a good time to replay the game and make a video about it. So I originally played this game sometime in 2011, and I recently replayed it with some modded and prettier graphics. This time around I pretty much went full completionist. I explored every corner in Nehrim and I went through every dungeon. There is a lot of dungeons. So this is my non-spoiler review / guide to the game. So Nehrim is a total conversion mod for the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, made by a German game development studio Sure, released in 2010 originally. It's basically a full game that is just using a lot of the assets from Oblivion. The game takes place on the continent of Nehrim in a world called Win, which has its own rich lore and a big main storyline separate from the Elder Scrolls. Nehrim is around the size of Cyrodiil in Oblivion, and you are looking at around 40 hours of gameplay if you follow the main quest, plus maybe do a few of the side quests and some exploration. My completionist playthrough was almost 80 hours. So Nehrim is a direct predecessor to Enderal, a total conversion mod for Skyrim, and if you played Enderal and liked it, then you should definitely check out Nehrim. I actually prefer Nehrim over Enderal. Nehrim is less polished and has more technical issues, but I find the game mechanics better and the Nehrim continent somehow just seems more charming to me and fun to explore than Enderal. Ultimately I just had a more rewarding experience with Nehrim than with Enderal, but both are great. So if you like RPGs you should really play both. Preferably I would say first Nehrim and then Enderal if you haven't played either yet. The game is fully voice acted in German only, and the English version has subtitles. I suppose this is the biggest barrier to get into the game for native English speakers who aren't used to subtitles, but it's a barrier well worth overcoming in my opinion. The voice acting is really good actually, and I will take a good voice acting in a foreign language over just plain text every time. It might even add to your immersion if you imagine that you are just in some foreign land where people speak like this. There was a community effort to get English voice acting for the game at some point, but it seems to be dead now. I will put the Nehrim English voice acting YouTube channel, there is a channel official one, in the description, but yeah, again that project is I think pretty well dead. For myself I can say that hearing a language I don't understand while reading English subtitles, which of course isn't my native language either, didn't really lower the enjoyment I got from the game at all, at least not by much. Mechanically, the game has some pretty big differences from vanilla Oblivion. The most important difference is the leveling system, something I utterly despise in Oblivion and even in Skyrim. Although the game world leveling in Skyrim was implemented a bit better than in Oblivion, but yeah, I just find this kind of design fundamentally flawed, boring and unrewarding. There have been plenty of arguments made on this topic and I won't get into them here. Anyway, so Nehrim has a set game world. Nothing in the game levels with you. It is a classical RPG experience of getting destroyed if you go into high level area early on. You need to level and improve your skills to be able to take on some challenges, and by the end you can enjoy that power fantasy being pretty much a god stepping on the lowly vermin as you see fit. My one issue here is that the ceiling could be a bit higher in Nehrim, I think. If you take some time exploring and clearing some dungeons, you will level quite fast. When I reached around level 30, I wasn't even close to being finished with the game, but at that point there were pretty much no enemies in the game that could challenge me. If you focus on min-maxing something, I suppose this might happen even earlier, like level 20, 25 or something like that. So I ended up just turning the difficulty slide bar to 100 at around level 30, and then I didn't change it for the rest of the game. Like in the Elder Scrolls games, your skills level as you use them. It is, however, at least I think it is, slower than in Oblivion, and more importantly, this isn't tied to leveling. You level by gaining experience points for killing enemies, discovering new areas, completing quests and few other things. The skills you improve do, however, influence bonuses to your attributes when you level up. So each level you gain 7 points you can use to improve your skills with trainers for some gold, or to learn some special skills, like there are hunting skills like skinning and teeth removal. And these can be a good investment early on, as you can just turn the random wildlife you encounter into nice profit. I find the lore of the Win, which is the game world, quite interesting. It is mostly consistent, and it actually pays off to read books and take a good look around the environment, as you will learn a lot about the world and the context of the main storyline, as it should be, I suppose, in a game like this. So while in my playthrough I actually didn't read the books in the game, but I would sometimes just load Nehrim wiki on my phone and read the books when I had a few spare minutes, like I would read them on a toilet or something. So that's one way you can go about it, if you don't like to be interrupted with your exploits while playing. And yeah, like I don't. The main storyline is pretty decent, I would say. I have certainly seen better in games, but it keeps you interested, and it's miles ahead of anything you encounter in Skyrim, and I'd say on par with the best parts of the guild quest in Oblivion, although it's much longer than those guild quests, of course. However, the game won me with its world design. If you enjoy exploring, if you enjoy the details and the little stories told with the design of the environments, that kind of world design you sometimes just find in a classic single-player Bethesda open-world experience and just go, that's pretty neat. This game has it on steroids. The amount of charm and little fun ideas is just unmatched by pretty much any other game I played. The world and the dungeons are handcrafted and very fun and rewarding to explore. There is something to be found at every corner, if you look hard enough. At the end of your path, you will generally at least have that that's pretty neat moment. Usually also some cool loot in form of a set item, there is quite a few sets in the game actually. Or you will just find a rare plant that boosts your stats permanently when eaten. There is also a sizable portion of Easter eggs that will make you smile and perhaps even make you blow a higher volume of air out of your nose. But little charming details is far from the only thing the world has to offer. There are also some huge original places, like an awesome Mines of Moria inspired dungeon, a whole castle occupied by bandits, a dead pass, a site of an ancient battle, magically polluted areas like a huge kind of area around a crater with some weird glowing crystals and many dungeons inside it, a spooky dark forest, an enormous ancient destroyed city, and of course different climate areas from snowy mountains to not so barren desert. The cities and villages are fairly big and quite lively compared to what you would normally see in the Elder Scrolls titles, especially Oblivion and Skyrim. Nehrim just does a lot better job of convincing me with its game design that this is a real place than Oblivion or Skyrim ever did. The game is very much focused on and held together by its rather big and linear main storyline. There is about a dozen or so bigger side quests and a few dozen more smaller ones. There is a decent variety in the side quests, and even the bounty mission quests have something to offer. These are of course of the go there and kill that guy / thing variety, but outside of the first few ones they do have a small story around them, and you will be taking on unique monsters and characters with some unique abilities which are actually not present anywhere else in the game, so even the bounty quests are worth it, I would say. The worst of the side content, I would say, was the arena fights in Ostian. where you'd have something like 10 same fights in a row before getting a different one. A few arena fights were quite unique and fun, but 90% of them were just a chore. In terms of actual role-playing choices, there is not much, as it tends to be in pretty much all modern-day open world RPGs. Generally, no matter what your choice, things will be pretty much, or they will unravel pretty much the same way. There are some permanent changes to the game world that reflect your progress within the main quest. I'm not gonna give examples as I want to avoid spoilers. These are nice to see and just go a bit further in convincing you that this is a real world. When it comes to the gameplay, however, the choices you make with your build very much matter in how you deal with things. The combat is pretty much the same as in Oblivion. Gameplay-wise, the traditional builds like Spellblade will work the same. The enemies are about 50-50 what's in Oblivion and what's either new or just modified somehow from the original Oblivion assets. There is, however, quite a few of one-of-a-kind enemies, sometimes in dungeons, but mostly in the bounty quests. There is a bit too much of wildlife for my taste, I would say. You never get to run very far without encountering a rabbit fox, a bear, or some other hostile wildlife. Most often though it's going to be a spider. This game is really fond of huge nasty spiders. Are you up north? There is a northern spider. Down south? Desert spider. In a dungeon you are going to meet a cross spider or a black widow. Nehrim is the Australia of Win. As Nehrim was made in 2010, it was made for the DVD Oblivion releases that were around at the time. So the installer just makes a copy of your Oblivion folder and then just installs Nehrim on top of it. The best way to get it running is to make a clean Oblivion installation with all the official patches and then just install Nehrim. If you don't have the DVD Oblivion release, you can get Oblivion on GOG. I think that version should be pretty close to the original DVD releases. If you have Oblivion on Steam, the installation might be a bit more tricky, but shouldn't be a big problem with some googling. Or you can just wait for the official Steam release that is supposed to come in June. Although I suppose that some more problems with mods for Nehrim might arise with the Steam release version. In terms of modding, there are mods made specifically for Nehrim, so you can just go to Nexus mods and search for Nehrim in under Oblivion mods. A lot of simpler mods for Oblivion will work in Nehrim as well. Because I made my installation years ago and then I just copied it from hard drive to hard drive, I can't really tell you what exactly was present in my playthrough. However, I only modded the visuals, so if you want a general guide on how to make the game look pretty, the basics are OBSE or Oblivion Script Extender and Blockhead for better faces. Pretty much any high quality body, models, mesh replacing mods, any 4K or even higher resolution texture packs to replace the textures. If you have anything better than a mid-range GPU from 10 years ago, the high-res textures won't really impact your performance at all. Some water shader or texture mod to make it less blue, because the vanilla Oblivion water is just ridiculously blue. I wouldn't recommend any ENBs, these actually will impact your performance. So just ramp up the resolution to whatever is native on your screen and turn on HDR. Also, to remove stutters, get the Oblivion stutter remover and limit the frame rate to 60. The INI file of the Oblivion stutter remover is actually limited to 30 by default, but there is really no point to go higher than 60. The engine just isn't made for any higher FPS and will just glitch out and stutter more. No matter how beastly your machine is, there are places in the game world where your FPS will just drop to or sometimes even below 30. This won't happen in the wilderness or in dungeons where you would be doing most of the fighting, but generally it will happen in the center of the big cities like in Erotin, Ostian, and to a lesser degree, at least in my playthrough, also in Kabayet. There is also this one small area in the Dark Forest which is just somehow completely fucked basically. and your frame rate will drop to like 10 if you use anything which casts light, like any spell pretty much. So mages just have to run through that area or deal with the slideshow when trying to kill something. So that's a bit annoying, but it's just really a tiny little area of the game world, so you can get over it. In my experience, you can get the biggest gains in performance by turning off water reflections. Don't use any ENBs, as I said before, and possibly also try turning down the shadows. I wouldn't turn off distinct objects or grass or anything like that, as in my experience this didn't really increase the performance much on a modern PC. Turning off the water reflections and of course not using the ENB, any ENB I would say, but I only tried a few, has by far the biggest impact on the performance. Generally the game only cares about your single-threaded CPU performance. It really doesn't matter what GPU you have as long as you have something better than a mid-range GPU from 2010. For reference, my playthrough was with Ryzen 5 3600 clock at 4.3 GHz. I actually might upload full playthrough eventually, but it might take a while since it's a lot of data, since I record it at 1440p 60 at very high bitrate, so yeah, don't expect the playthrough to be up soon. It will probably be no surprise to anyone that a huge total conversion mod for an already buggy game isn't the most stable thing in the world. I averaged about 1 crash per hour. That actually sounds quite bad, but it wasn't a huge deal for me, since I have a habit of quick saving all the time, and the fast loading on the modern PC with an SSD I usually lost like 20 seconds or so. The good news is that I haven't encountered any game-breaking or even just quest-breaking bugs, nor did I encounter a place where the game would just consistently crash. The crashes all just seem to be random. One last note I have, I'm actually a Linux user almost exclusively, and I'm set to report that this game really isn't viable to play under Wine. It does work if you just install DirectX 9 and .NET 40. .NET 40 is actually needed only for the launcher with Wine-Tricks, and it's about as stable as the Windows version actually. The problem is the performance in Wine, since right now D9VK, which is a branch of DXVK for DirectX 9, doesn't work with Oblivion, and therefore it doesn't work with Nehrim, of course. So just plain Wine plus the DirectX 9 libraries is the only option to play this in Linux, and it costs like 10 FPS over Windows in my experience. So in a game where in the center of a city you sometimes drop below 30 no matter your setup pretty much, dropping below 20 was just unacceptable to me, so I couldn't play this in Linux unfortunately. Anyway, to wrap this up, if you feel like you would enjoy a big open world game with a charming game world, rich and interesting lore, and a decent and pretty long storyline that holds it all together, a game which doesn't hold your hand too much and lets you fail in order to learn, while not really being difficult or frustrating, and if you can get over some technical issues and occasional lack of polish, Nehrim is a must play.